Hello there, welcome to Empathetic Educators. I'm your host, Naomi Toland, and before we start the session this week, I just wanted to reflect on the week that I've just had, because in this season change, I've really been reflecting on myself and looking inward and holding myself accountable for my actions. And so this has really been at the forefront of my brain the past couple of weeks. Like, for example, I've been reading books and the sessions I've been editing have really been highlighting how important this is. And so I'm seeing aspects of that in my day-to-day life. And yeah, I just want to reflect on that before we start the next session. So for example, in the book last week, The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters, I was reflecting on who's in the driving seat. Is it my chimp who's really driven by emotional thought and emotional actions, or is it my human who has the more logical, realistic way of thinking? And yeah, it's hard to balance those things. And in the current climate that we're in with lockdown, it has brought change for us all. And I think that's really made me question how we deal with that and how we support ourselves through that. So I've spoken to people who have lost their jobs. How are they dealing with that? I've spoken to people who have started up things that they've wanted to do for a long time. They've been really positively impacted by it. I've spoken to people who have 4, 5, 6 people in their family and they're really having to adapt to their new normal. And so yeah, as I've mentioned in my last session, I have been doing the 5 pillars that for the top tip takeaways. So growth, change, accountability, challenging ourselves, perspectives, and relationships. So while speaking to these people the past week, I feel like the pillar that's really standing out during lockdown is growth. So how are we getting impacted by this? Are we growing positively with what's happening? Or is it impacting us negatively and we're getting stunted? And in this book this week, Mind Power by John Kyo, it also talks about the fact that it's a personal choice to how we react and how we think in our brain. So are we thinking positively or are we going on a different boat and thinking negatively to what's happening to us? So COVID, corona, global crisis, confusion, pandemic are some words that I've heard this week. But on the other hand, gratitude, acceptance, relationships, opportunities, growth are other words that I've heard this week in other conversations. And sometimes it feels like life's not fair. But I think from what I'm reading and thinking from what conversations I've been having with other people, it is the thoughts that we hold in our head are actually what's going to form our reality that's happening around us. So if we think it's not fair, I can't go to work, my job's not doing what I normally do, then we can flip that and we can think, I'm lucky that I have a job and I'm in a secure position at the minute. We could be thinking, life's not fair, I've lost my job, I can't do this, I can't do that. But we could flip it and we could think, I've lost my job, so I've got more time on my hands now to do what I need to do. And don't for one second think that I'm not appreciating how difficult this can be. I think as teachers, we've had a lot of ups and downs, having to deal with change, having to support families through their change, having to support learners going through their change. I completely understand that and I'm aware that it is hard, it is tough, and it is really difficult. But I think what I'm trying to say is my opinions and my thoughts from reading and just from talking to other people. It is a choice. It is a choice. What we can do in our heads is a choice that we actually have the power of. So are we having those negative spiral down moments? Or are we having those, yeah, this is what's happening to us, but what next? What now? What can we do with this? And looking at the opportunities, looking at those positive words I mentioned, like gratitude, being grateful for what you do have, looking at those relationships that you can work on, looking at those positive thoughts that can help us through a really challenging time. So yeah, that brings me into where I've been and the thoughts that have been going around my head, and I'm really grateful that I am actually focusing on the inward of me this month or these last couple of weeks, because it really is helping me think about what choices I'm making. And I have had those down days. I have had the days where, why aren't we still in school? Why, it would be so much easier if I could do this, so much better relationship wise for my kids if I could do this. But I stop and I think to myself, who's in control here? Am I letting my emotions and my frustration and anger control me? Or am I going to move past this and think, what can I do? How can I have fun with the learners, with the opportunities that we do have? How can I make the most of the time that I have for myself to do my reading? That accountability piece for the choice that you're having in your head and whether you choose to spiral down or spiral up, that is something that I'm feeling is empowering me day by day, because that's making me make the choices instead of letting the external factors that I can't control make the choices. So that feeds right into the person I have on today's show. And he's an amazing friend, Peter Josephs, who has actually lost his job due to lockdown and due to the pandemic that is happening. And I've just been so inspired by the way he's dealt with this. And he has a family who do rely on him and do rely on for support. So I really wanted to connect with him because he helped me during my Women to Warrior experience with my mental side of things. He was helping me train, he was helping me with my pads and everything, which was great for my physical side. But I think the biggest thing that helped me was I was able to talk to him about my mental, whenever I've had my lows, he was like, yep, that's fine, but what are you going to do tomorrow? And he kept thinking about what's happening next. Oh, I'm worried about the person who I'm fighting, or I'm worried about how I'm going to react to them, what they're going to do. And he was like, what can you control? And I think this session is really inspiring for me, just to hear how he's dealt with the circumstances that he's found himself in. We begin by talking about Peter's personal journey during lockdown and what his positive takeaways have been, but also what his negative aspects have been as well. Me and Peter, it was great to catch up because, yeah, we love talking about the brain and psychology and just how we function as humans. So, yeah, I hope you have some great takeaways from it as well, and I hope you enjoy. So,
What it actually has done is allowed me to just really go, okay, I can do it on my own now. Like they've given me that nudge to go and do it on my own, and I think it's something I should have done a couple of years ago, but it's where I am at now. So it sort of forced me to do it and go out there and now start just really, getting GST number for my business and things like that. And just little things I didn't do before because I was like, I'm all right, I'm being paid. Like my bills are paid. So um, I think just with that uncertainty, it's been tough, but that's more of an internal process for me. It wasn't out, I didn't really, I talk about to my kids. I'm quite open with my children. So if I'm anxious, because I feel that my parents and things like that, they weren't like that. Like they try to hide a lot of things about how you feel and things like that. But if I'm more upfront with my children like that, then they're going to be the same way with me. So I feel like, I've told them I was anxious and they're like, oh, what's anxious? And I was like, well, it's, when you're worried about things, and they're like, oh, I'm anxious too. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's good to know. Like, and then we have a little conversation about it. And I think just being able to sort of have these conversations, it's helped me share the load with them. And they take it on, and because they're kids, they're just like, this is the way to deal with it. And
yeah,
I'm like, that actually might be the way we'll deal with it, man. Like, and I think so. It's been really, really good. I think lockdown in general is fantastic, to be honest with you. And for my family specifically, it's been great. Like, like you said before, it's not. I don't stick to the Sacred Heart where my son's at. They're like, oh, you got to make sure he's doing his periods by period by period. This is the timeline. I was like, nah, if you finish your work, dude, I don't care. Each
yeah.
work done, tick the boxes, make sure you're done. And he's been doing that. And then there's freedom. I said, hey, you work hard now, then yeah, that's when you can muck around later.
Yeah.
But get your work done. If you're missing stuff just so you can go do things later, then there's a consequence there
I
as
think
well.
that's like it's so important. Like what you literally just like mentioned. That's why I wanted to contact you because I was typing up stuff and because I'm at the minute I'm just for my podcast and just I've kind of split it up into the first one I want to focus on is like the inward part of ourselves, like how we focus on ourselves and then how that relates to how we make relationships with other people and then what culture does that create for like good foundations moving forward. And so
yeah,
like the first season that I'm in at the minute is all about change and all about how we focus on our, like, what thoughts do we create in our head, what does that produce in the outward sphere of what we're actually dealing with. And I think when I was typing it up, I was mentioning the fact that you really helped me with like my my mental part of my fit training, like physical part obviously, but mental part of my training. Like whenever I was worried about who I was fighting or what was going to happen or what if, you kept saying to me, "But what are you in control of?" And that was like that really that really spun out to me. And I thought obviously that must be something that you're going through right now with obviously losing your job, and how
yeah,
that, I think that'd be a really good session to kind of tie in with this, because we did say we were going to have an interview together because it was kind of relating to each other. But while I was typing up, I was like, why am I typing this up whenever it could be perfect opportunity for us to actually catch up and really talk about this type of stuff? Because I think that was a big standout for me, was especially my concussion. I like
yeah,
the aftermath. It was like before mentally preparing, but then the aftermath of like the fight as well. Like
yeah,
that day whenever I walked into you crying, I was like, what is going on? Like what's actually going on? But then you were like, you've had your high, now this is your low. And it's that accepting piece. I think that's like was really the thing that you it stood out to me, was it's accepting that this is happening and what are you
yeah,
going to do about it. And I think that's what you just talked about there now, is like you obviously have your down times with your kids, and like losing your job is not an easy thing to deal with. Like you might think, oh, what can I do now? But you still have that internal worry of, how do I pay the bills? How do I do that? But how have you kind of, like, with that anxiety, how have you balanced that, or what have you found works, or yeah.
yeah. A lot of it does come from my sporting background, like when I
Mm.
was playing professionally, because you're anxious. Like I couldn't sleep before games. Like I really could not sleep. So when I hit the court, I'm tired. I can't eat as well. Like I'm a highly anxious person anyway. So uh, professional sports allowed me to sort of, or just sports in general, allowed me to deal with anxiety, like just the internal process. Um, and then like, things like little we're really superstitious, like sports people. So things need to be like, I used to have my shoes set, my uniforms like folded, everything set, and I'll lie there and I'll look at things, and I couldn't sleep. But I feel that internal process of dealing with it then, and then getting into the game, and then when you're when you're in there, time flies. Like all the worry's gone because you just got to do it, and then you perform because you've been practicing. And then afterwards, with the lose or win, like win, obviously it's a little bit easier to deal with. When you win, you're on a high and you're just like, yeah, I'm sweet, Um, but if you lose, then that's a different thing. But when you lose a fight, that's different. So what you're going through, and I understood, like because I've been in fights and things like that, and I was trained as a fighter from my father. So I understand losing a fight, and that's so different in regards to,
It's a
um,
personal thing, isn't it? Like it's a you, and I think that's why that's it. When I was typing up my reflection about my fight, I was like, that's why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to get in the ring. Was like the first step of like being by yourself, but then I didn't realize how much being by yourself, the aftermath of being by yourself as well, like getting in the ring and like having the bravery and having like the psyche to get in the ring is one thing, but
yeah,
then losing and like with concussion after that, that's a whole different thing of like, and it's the low of you've trained so long and so much and so hard, and then you don't have that after as well. So like it's all those different chemicals and all those different feelings are going around. Like it's such a weird, yeah.
and I think like yeah, and that's what's helped me now was all those processes. So you understand that, like going through that, because it is a load, and especially if you're like with concussion. So that's a physical sort of ailment. You know what I mean? Like that's a proper physical ailment that's happening in your brain, which is such an important part of you, and a part of your functioning. I just think, with that type of thing, like when I got beaten up one really bad, and I just think of this time. I got beaten up when I was pushing trolleys. So I was collecting trolleys with my part-time job, and I was collecting trolleys. And then these three guys are drunk, and they're way older than me. So I was 15 at the time, and they're real older than me. And they saw me pushing trolleys, so they pulled up, and they was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like, I was like, "Just working." And then one guy jumped out, and he was just like, "Hey, man, do you know me?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And he just started swinging. So I was like, "Oh, cool." Got in a fight with him, and I didn't see his mate came from behind and hit me with a bat, like hit me with a bat, flush on my face, and I was just like, "Bang, out." I came to, and they're like kicking me while I was on the ground, and then I got up, and then they jumped in the car, took off. But the aftermath of that, because I was concussed and like I was bruised, like my body was beaten, and I was like, my dad put me in a bath and just set me there and just goes, man, but I had PTSD for sure.
Yeah.
After I was quite scared. of things, and I was really mentally quite scarred for a good month or two.
Mm.
I wasn't as confident in myself and things like that. Um, so all these types of experiences, now it's no like honestly, I'm not. I've been in the entrepreneur space for like 5 years now, so
Yeah.
like I can tell the difference between when I was in my 9 to 5. When you're in a 9 to 5, you're on that hamster wheel. Like you're going, you're relying on your boss, you're relying on your wage, you're paying your bills, and there's nothing. You really get into a routine. When I became an entrepreneur and did a wrestling gig about 5 years ago, that man, I was out of my comfort zone. I had no money. I wasn't getting paid for a whole year, and like just relying on my wife's wage the whole time. And
Mm.
I was just like you as a man, you got the whole, oh, I'm a man, I should be blah blah blah,
Providing. Yeah.
providing for my family, blah blah blah. And she's just holding us down, And I just think at that time I was like, you really figure out, what you can deal with and what you can't, and what you actually need. I was like, well, you don't need much. You really don't. A whole lot of things that you're holding on to, and I think the lockdown's done that for us too. It's like, I don't need that much. I don't need all these things that I wanted, So you're understanding what needs and wants are, balancing that. So this lockdown actually, I breezed through it really. And other than just the anxiety around my job, just because I'm an anxious person in general anyway. So it's just
But I
like,
suppose as well you've got the extra layer because that's what I've been really that's the place that I can't understand is like obviously I can understand single people and what they're going through and like doing like the getting through the lockdown, changing their jobs, changing their sphere. I can really understand that side and talk about that. But I suppose there's another level of what you're talking about is you've got a support system that you're trying to get as well. Like you've got, do you have the worry of that on your, like, how do you deal with that with your kids or?
like I think like I'll go back to when I went into the wrestling gig because that was more scarier than for now. So that's what taught me to deal with it now.
Yeah.
Then was like, oh, what if I don't have enough money to feed them? What if I can't pay rent or have the electricity on? Things like that. And like they will play on the back of my mind, and just be like, man, what if I can't do that? I'm responsible for these humans. And if I don't do this, they can't live, So for me, it's like you do get in the survival mode. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna have to, you're either gonna fight or flight. What are you gonna do? You're gonna stand there and actually go do something about it, or am I just gonna run back to my 9 to 5 and go be safe again?
Yeah.
Things like that. And that was a big process for me. So now, like, I still have those worries. They sit in the back of your head always, so I still have these worries, but I deal with my anxiety a lot better. In that regard, because it's like, oh, what if I can't? And I was like, what if I can't? I can't, doesn't matter. I will find a way always. So and I think that's the last 5 years I've proven to myself that I can find a way. One, to get paid. If I have to go fishing, that's what I said. Hey, we got fishing rods. Like we're not gonna, we're not gonna, I own a car. We got a van. We can sleep in that. I'm going down to I go down to all possibilities, and what could happen. Because
I think you say there was like it's natural to have that. Like I think it's not that anyone who says that they're trying to think positively, it's not about them being, it's not that they don't think negatively and they don't have those thoughts. Of course we all experience that. Like you say, it's survival. And I think I was reading the book, my last session I just released was I was doing an interview with Nathan Wallace and I was reading the book. I've actually got it here. I don't know if you've read it before, The Chimp Paradox. I don't know if you've heard of that, but like it's really cool. It's all about like you have like your chimp brain, which is like your survival, like your like emotional brain, and then you have like your human side, which is like your logical and your explanation side. And I think like we can't help but go into that emotional chimp brain, but it's what we do with those thoughts that actually matters. And it's
yeah,
like if you're having those thoughts, like how are you going to flip it? Are you going to let yourself spiral and keep thinking emotionally and frustrated? Or are you going to think, okay, what can I do with that? Like you say, and we can fish, we can have our van, we can have that. It's
yeah,
that logical rationale is what we can control. And I think
yeah.
that balance is like really important, isn't it? Helping them.
It's a battle, and I mean, a lot of people, we lose that battle because we believe it's just natural. Like a lot of it's, oh, that's just naturally, that's just how it goes. To be honest, I was like, that's why we have logic. That's why we're above the other creatures, and
Mm-hmm.
on this earth, is that we have this logical brain. We have that prefrontal cortex that allows us to look at things rationally rather than just react that way. And that's been a journey for me is actually trying to control that part of me. I think we've talked about this before. Is where I'm really trying to control, like, real crazy,
We're all crazy.
trying to control my chemicals, like, and things like that, like, and it's with my anxiety, like I can feel it coming on. I could, there's times like probably a couple of weeks ago where I was waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning every night, just heart's racing. I was like, damn, like because I was dreaming about my problem, like So then I just went through some breathing exercises, like just breathing properly, getting proper oxygen, and then thinking, all right, where is this coming from? Which actual part of my brain can I feel it in? It was kind of on the left side. So I was like, okay, how can I, what, just little exercises with myself, trying to control these chemicals and things like that. Still, it's still trial and error. I'm still experimenting with myself, but I think I'm getting there. But I think using your logic, using your rationale, and then break it down step by step. So that's one thing. If you let it spiral, if you let it get big, get real big, and then let these thoughts just start controlling you, then there it is. Well, but then if you go, and it's little thoughts too. That's funny with mental illness or just with mental gymnastics that you go through. It's just little thoughts, and these thoughts are they have a physical impact on you. Like they physically, you'll feel it in your body. You'll feel it the way you act, the way you speak, all these types of things. And I'm like, okay, if I can really control it and just go and recognize, I think recognition of it is probably the most important thing because we're not recognized. Most of us are just floating, and I'm going and I'm doing my job. I'm doing these things. I pick up, I can pick up a pencil. Well, we don't think about it. Like, oh, I can pick this pencil up, and the connection between your brain and your body. So for me, like because I've been exploring it through my basketball and doing it with kids, it's something I like. Everything I do with kids, I've experimented on myself. So I think it's anxiety wise and just how we're dealing with it. It's been a really good experience.
I love the way
Really,
you said like that idea of mental gymnastics. I think that literally is what it is, isn't it? Like it's balance and you're like up and then you're down and then it's like
yeah,
it's always different things. But I think you could say control. We're trying to get it's natural for us whenever, especially in a time like this, like we're trying to cusp onto stability, onto security, onto control of what's happening. But if we're trying to do external control, and we're not actually focusing on the internal control, that's where we're not going to get that stability because if in here's all up, but actually we're trying to get external stability, then that's not going to balance out, isn't it not?
work. And sometimes we use like, and when I was younger, I'd use a bottle. I'll use alcohol. I'll use
Yeah.
like alcohol takes away my anxiety. I'm just full of confidence. And I've recognized that now.
Yeah.
Like as an older guy, I'm like, man, why did I love drinking so much? Like it's because I'm an anxious dude. So it just made me shut up and just think about, oh, what am
Yeah.
I doing right now? Like So now I've taken that and I'm trying to take that mentality that I had when I was drunk
Mhm.
or when I was drinking and just use it naturally. Like just use it while I'm sober and use that mentality, and it helps. It helps. Like just have a bit more confidence in myself. Because like people think I'm really confident. I'm not a confident person at all. Like
Yeah.
I'm super not confident in myself at all. And I've always just been. But sometimes you puff up like that. Like just being from where I'm from. If you show some weakness, you get into a fight. Someone's going to test you. That type of thing. So I've always kind of had that just puff up and walk around like that. But a lot of it's just it's bullshit. Like it's not.
And we've
What's
had that
going
conversation before about like people thinking that you're something that you're not. Like people look at you and they have like that expectation of you or they have that assumption of you. And I think that's what we had a conversation about that and we were saying I think we were talking about the fact that that's on them, not on us. And I think like if people think because I'm the same, I think a lot of people who are extroverted or go on confident, I'm the same. I have loads of doubts in my head and it's not I think I was watching this article and it was about confidence is a skill. It's not actually something that's naturally in our bodies, and maybe people do it naturally, but I really do see confidence as a skill, as in if you're outward and you're being proud of yourself. Actually, that's what you've trained your brain to think. It's
working
not
on
about
it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's not that it's every day that you feel that. It's not that every day that you're going through that. It's actually that you're playing that mental gymnastics of what
Yeah.
do I feel? How do I feel that? Why am I feeling that? And what can I change to make myself feel better about myself? And that's the yeah.
Yeah, and like when I'm teaching the jump shot, because I've got like a lot of these kids, jump shooting is really mental. Like I can find, like I can see my anxiety in my jump shot. Like if I'm not mentally there and I'm playing basketball, I can see it in my jump shot. And it's always been it's something I've used with kids, like with the one. Well, the reason why I was at Stonefields in the first place,
Mm.
so was a highly angry kid, and trying to control his sort of just control his emotions, especially his anger. Um, I use free throw shooting. So shooting free throw, it's about calm. It's from the same distance, same height, everything like that, and using that thing because I could see it. Like even though he's telling me he's fine, I could see it in the shot. He's not fine. So there's indicators, and like that's one of the biggest studies I've been doing just with my jump shot with shooting is your mental state and how it helps. So a lot of my kids are really high. These kids are anxious. Like a lot of these young kids, Generation Z, they're anxious, and especially the basketball players that I come across. Some of them are so anxious, and I was like, okay, you need to start talking to yourself. Like you need to start talking to yourself. You need to have some confidence in yourself. You don't have to act this way on the outside, but on the inside, you need to say, this shot is going in and I know it is. And I feel great about it. And shoot it like that because I can tell if you're not, about the way it looks and things like that. So me making connections between what they're physically showing me and what's actually going on in here has been really good for me. It's still a work in progress, but there's some real gains that I'm finding in that shooting space for me.
And I think as well, like that's just exactly transfers into the classroom as well, or at home or wherever. Like that idea of behavior is communication. That's what I'm really, really trying to put forward in here is behavior is communication for anyone, whether it's yourself, what you're noticing.
Yeah,
Behavior, it's not that they're just being bad or just being naughty or just being
yeah,
like distracted. It's actually they're communicating that something's going on for them and something's going on inside. And
right.
I think that's like that empathy piece is the more we can empathize with each other and notice what that behavior showing, like you're saying, taking that step back, pausing and actually thinking what's going on. And I
Yeah,
think that pause is just so important, especially even for ourselves. Like you say, we're just constantly just moving, going through life. And unless we just take a little pause and actually think what does that mean? What is that showing? And making
yeah,
those connections really important.
yeah. And that's it. I think like I've like having this time has been great for me professionally as well. Like I just sit there and I'm reading and I'm just looking at things and trying to better myself as a coach and as a educator of basketball, right? Um, and I've found a lot of good things, but a lot of it's internal, man. Like I read a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, I throw out a whole lot of stuff because of my neck. That's just them waffling, trying to make them sound great. Does it make sense to me? Does it make sense to the kids that I've worked with? Like, I'm trying to just be really specific so that one, I don't put all kids in boxes. Every kid is different. And when I speak to them, I need to speak to them. I need to understand them, like not, and with some, preconceived, like I have some preconceived ideas, but I really need to listen to them and then tailor everything that I do for them, and I think that's always a better, one, professionally, it works out better for me. Like I think, if you have that proper personal touch, I'll have more clients practically. And so, but then again, it's I'm not one that's driven by money. It's never been the thing for me. It's like I just want to see them get better and then see them grow, and I just have satisfaction in that. And I'm like, oh man, like that's worked out. Tick, cool. I've learned something from you, and you've learned something from me, and it's good. Like so um, I'm I'm excited to come out of it and just try all these things and work with these kids and see what happens. Um,
It must be helping your relationship with your kids as well, though, with like you because you're training most days, isn't it? With you guys, like you're training
yeah,
together and like putting that out. I think that's obviously I think that goes again towards the mindset of oh, everything's bad, but actually what positives are coming out of this, and you're getting that time to spend time with them and go through that too, isn't it?
and I usually don't have that time.
Yeah.
Like I spend more time with other people's kids than I do my own.
Hmm.
Like and sometimes when I come home, I'm upset with them. So like I'm just grumpy. So I was like, yo, leave me alone for 30 minutes. Like just give me 30 minutes, and then I'll come back and chat to you. But I've always made a concerted effort just to have conversations with my children. They're funny. Like they're funny kids. Anyway, like the personality wise, I have great conversations with them because they're funny. They say some really out of things, And that's what our last, nearly 40 days has been, is just getting to know each other. And
And that's scary. I'm sure that must be scary. Parents do. I seen a little skit where where it was like parents, and they were saying, "Who are these people? Who are these? I don't talk to them. Who are these people in my house? I don't want to do that." And it's like,
that's right. Who
yeah,
are these people?
yeah.
And they're people. They're not just my kids. You know what I mean? And I forget sometimes, like, all the things I've learned out there to apply to them. And um, but I've really got to know them quite well, know where they're at, know what they're like in school. Like, watching my daughter on her Zoom class, like, she's so bossy. I don't know if she's so bossy. She's sitting in her Zoom class going, "Wait, you haven't contributed this whole time." This other kid, I'm like, "Yo, you don't need to be like that." I don't know you're like that. Uh,
Oh,
and it's good to know that about her. And good to know what she's into, and how she feels. And training them, I'm harder on my kids than I am on anyone else, like any other kid that I train. Sometimes it's like, well, other kids that I'm training, I'm like, okay, but these ones I'll get on them. Like, if you watch, I did a live today. I try to be as nice as possible while the lives, because I'm aware that people are watching this. But man, I'm like, yo, like, I'm really getting at them. And I'm like, eh. But afterwards, it's a high five. It's a,
yeah.
man, you were really great. Like, I'm glad that you guys, and say, hey, I'm hard on you guys. That's cool. But I'm hard for these reasons. Like, I always try and give my kids reasons. Um, and have proper conversations, man. I just try and, because I feel like, I was raised with, like, you get smacked, like, you get a hiding, like, if you're not, if you, and then there's no explanation for it.
Mhm.
Um, there's more just like, don't do this or you're going to get a hiding. And I'm like, all right, okay. Now I'm like, yo, I've just told you off. And like, I'm not a perfect parent, man. I can chew my kids out. Like, I can get really upset and just go at them. And then afterwards, I realized I'm not, I was in the wrong. And so I'll go tell them, hey, I was wrong with the way I talked to you, but you were wrong in the way that the reason why I was talking to you this way was this, but I shouldn't talk to you that way. So they do understand that. And like, it's been a work on, like, this whole year has been a work on.
Yeah.
And I think lockdown's been great because I've not yelled at them once. Like, I haven't raised my voice, I haven't sworn at them, like, because I'm bad, man. I can swear and stuff at my kids. Like, they've heard all the words. Uh, but they just, I've been calm in the way I've dealt with them.
But I think
And
like you're like it connects again to the Nathan Wallace interview I had last week. Well, I released that again last week, and he was saying about punitive versus restorative, and he was
yeah,
saying like in New Zealand, obviously that's not my background, so I wouldn't know exactly the whole history. But he said I do know that child abuse is a big thing in New Zealand, and like suicide and that kind of thing is really big. And he
yeah,
was saying like you just exactly what you just explained is like punitive is like you're not showing them actually what's going on, you're just scaring them into like you're scaring them into following the rules. And it's actually like discipline doesn't is actually comes from the word disciple as in guidance, and what
that's
you're
right.
saying is like guiding them towards understanding that yeah, I've made a mistake and you've made a mistake, but what are we going to learn from it? Am I going to just huff and puff and not talk to you about what's happened, or am I
Yeah,
going to respect the fact that I did mess up and you've messed up? Now what does that mean? And like
yeah,
you guiding them through those conversations are really important, isn't it?
it is. And I think because my son's he's going through puberty now. He's 12. He's 12 this year, and he's getting lippy. Like, he's talking back. And I'm trying not to really have a go at him. Like, I'm just, because I have to go back to when I was a teenager or when I was going through those things, and I have to really, really step back into his shoes and go, all right, why was I like that? Like, why was I lippy to my mother? And what was I feeling? Okay, he's probably might be feeling the same thing. He's just grumpy, like, just tired. Like, your body's growing and you're just tired. So I got to understand this. So when I do hear it back, I'm like, don't. I was like, yo, you can't speak to me that way. That's disrespectful. Like, can you speak to me properly? Like, and things like that. So I'm trying not to raise, like, because I felt that's what happened with me and my mom. My mom was just, I'll answer back and she's going tick, 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 and it just goes up and up and up and up. And I'm like, and we end up in big fights. So right now I'm like, I'll just cut it there where it's like, okay, we're not going to go up here. We're just going to stay here. And I'm just going to make sure I want to converse with you. I'll show you respect so you can show me respect, and
And I think
It's
that goes back, like he was saying, that at that age we have to be their brains, because they're going
yeah,
into that, like their prefrontal cortex is
cool.
gone. Like if they don't have it, like they actually physically cannot access it. So like we're expecting them to be something that they're not, because they can't do it. Like literally, like, and it must be hard. Like I remember whenever I was just slamming doors in my dad's face, like just like, oh, I have apologized so much whenever I've because
Yeah,
I was just like just aw
just
it
make,
wasn't awful, but just
yeah,
constantly just angry at everything. And
yeah,
no one, I literally remember slamming the door being like, no one understands what I'm going through in this house. And like, oh, drama queen, like so
yeah.
ridiculous. But it's because you can't physically stop your emotions. Like that emotional brain is completely in control. You don't have that logical brain. And
Right.
it's yeah.
And just like and seeing that and just realizing that, like I think like my our parents, they just the way my mom dealt with it was she just like it's just disrespectful. Like they're not having that understanding. So just having that understanding, I think it's
Yeah.
as always, if you recognize it and just go, okay, what's going on here, rather than just look at the behavior, what's driving that
Yeah.
behavior, why are they doing it, and remember why. And like I was a teenager, so I know exactly why. Like and that's it. You just I can't explain it. I can't explain why I was so mad or why I was just like, nah, not listening, nah, I can't hear anything he's saying. Like all these types of things. And just explaining to him, and man, our conversations are good. So when I do hear it, I'm just like, yo, you just need to speak to me a bit better. Like I'm not gonna react. We're not gonna have a good conversation if you keep talking to me like this. And then if he keeps going, then I was like, okay, we'll talk later. I can't talk to you about it right now. Like and just give that time. Because when he comes back down, he'll come in and give me a cuddle, and we'll start talking, and
Yeah.
just go, oh,
But if you had have risen to him, and if you had escalated and escalated and escalated, that hug wouldn't have happened, because he would have been like, "Why is my dad being not understanding me?" But because you
yeah,
didn't even rise to it, that kind of puts pause, and then he like comes back in and just lets it happen. Then
right.
yeah,
And just and that's the best way to deal with it. Like I understand that now, and I know it's gonna get worse. And then when my daughter hits it, it's gonna get worse. Like she already has no ears. Like I don't really worry about her, uh, because she is just. But I love it.
yeah,
I love this for my daughter, because this world, females are the most held down people in forever, like in the human race, right? Like you guys are the most. Everything is tailored to you guys to be submissive when you're really not. Like my daughter,
we're
and man,
definitely not.
I raised my daughter. Everyone's like, oh, like everyone does the old, oh, you're gonna be mean to the when she has a boyfriend come over. I was like, dude, I feel sorry for her boyfriend. Like she's gonna be a monster. Like if she even likes boys, I don't even care. Like
Yeah,
she already says, nah, I don't want kids. I'm like, good. Like
yeah.
she's like, I don't want kids. I'm like, good. I don't want to get married. Good. You man, don't need to do any of that stuff. Like just because I believe, I've always believed this. I'm a feminist by heart, because my mother, single mother, so I always have real, and I tell this to my wife. I'm just like, yo, you like sometimes I see it because she was raised Mormon, so a lot of her things are real Molly Mormon. Like she's just like,
Yeah,
oh, I need to do this and that. I was like, no, you don't. I was like, and she was just like, what? I was like, you should tell me to shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah,
just tell me to piss off. Like,
yeah.
I expect that from you, and I expect you, and my daughter. I was like, that's different parenting altogether.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
having a
don't.
voice. Like it's that seen and not heard versus actually like being seen and being heard attitude. And that's
Yeah,
like that's the big difference, I think, as well. And like it's still a thing. Like it's but I think it's that respectful seen and heard. Like it's I respect you, you respect me, and that's what it is. Like it's having that voice, but what are you going to do with that voice? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the voice that you have?
yeah.
What's that going to mean for us in our relationship? So yeah.
And I mean, what the thing I find female strength is different from male strength. And for her, I just make sure she's not trying to be strong like a man. Be strong like a woman, because it's a different thing. It's quieter. Like you don't have to be, because it's not as much testosterone involved. Um, but there's a strength there that is, she's understanding, and she's wild, man. Like I think I've raised her this way. Like she's just
Yeah.
really, she really doesn't care. Like she's just got this real attitude, especially towards me. And this since her birth, like since birth, she looked at me like you ain't shit. Like she's always treated me that way too. And I've kind of just let it happen because I'm like, yeah, treat men like this. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I just feel that's the best way to do it. But yeah, I'm scared of her. But you know, she's yeah, because you know, having a boy and a girl is different. Like, it's a
Hmm.
different um, way of teaching. It's a
I
different
think
way of
that in that book I just showed you as well, like it's like it's sad that he has to justify himself, but he was like, I don't want this to be a conversation where it's like male versus female and like you can't say this, you can't say that. But like genetically, it is proof that males' bodies are different from female bodies. And like you say, I love the fact that like it's different types of strengths. Like that's what me and Rob talk about is like in leadership, what does it mean to have a male leader? What does it mean to have a female leader? What strengths are there? What and everyone obviously has different strengths and different weaknesses and that kind of thing. But like innate female and innate male strengths, what is that, what comes out of those things? And both are
yeah,
needed, both qualities are needed, like no matter who you are, no matter what you are. If like say
yeah,
that, because I would say actually I've got quite a lot of like I'm like that kind of outward kind of way of like male type ways of going on.
yeah,
Like females can have it too, of course, and like you can get males who are like maybe more softer spoken and like that kind of thing. But it's more like the traits that are that survival element, that chimp element of things. Like
yeah,
that's evolution, that's proven evolution, where like males had this role and females had this role, and
yeah.
that's where it comes from. Is like that kind of like understanding of that as well.
Yeah, well, there's chemicals again, right? So like the physical, like what does estrogen do to your brain? Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And what does testosterone do to your brain? And it's obvious. Like people take steroids,
yeah,
they take testosterone, and you see what happens, especially in females when they take steroids.
hmm,
They get way more aggressive. They become real masculine in the way that they act and the way they move. Um, Whereas, you know, with when a male is transitioning and they start taking estrogen, they change, like, you
yeah,
know, but and they become way more emotional. And it's not being emotional, it's emotional strength
yeah,
and emotional intelligence. Women have a higher emotional intelligence than men, that's
yeah.
fact. And mentally they're smarter. Like we are stupid, like I know it for sure. We, we aren't as intelligent as,
You're a male and you're saying that, so I'm not gonna.
I know it for sure. We just don't, testosterone makes you just go, what's happening right in front of you, get it done, like go do that, like, you know, and go hard. Whereas, you know, females always have a wider perspective. Like there's always what's happening here, and like I know I got to do this, but then there's always a planning type thing. When I speak to females, it's always I have better conversation that I have with females now than when I do with my male counterparts. Because sometimes I'm just like, yo, you talk too much, like you're just talking about some dumb shit. Like, you know, I feel like I'm 20, but then we need it sometimes. Like
Yeah.
we need that conversation.
And that's where
But
that balance comes in. Like it's like that balance of like males and females and like in the environment, especially in the working environment. Like it's you can definitely tell when it's a very one gender, like one type of way of going on. I think
yeah,
that's like it's just so different. I think like you said, like that element of like evolution wise, like males had their job and that was like very much like that focus and that's what they had to do. But females had to worry about so much other things. So that's where we've had like that brain is a very different brain. But I think I haven't got the answer to this, but I think that's I definitely I've been thinking about recently is because obviously like you have like different brain systems. You have a natural female way of doing
mhm,
it and a natural male way of doing it. But what is different about like is there certain traits that maybe females have certain male type tendencies in their brain? Like that's what's making that be more
yeah,
of like a trait. And that's definitely an area that I'm kind of going into. But like what does that look like? And I think that's that he said it really nicely in the book is it's not about like a sexist feminist like oh females can't do this, males can't do that. It's actually about what genetically and
okay,
chemically is going
yeah,
on in the body and
yeah,
trying to ask questions like that. It's not about putting, like you say, putting people in boxes and saying males can only do this, females can only do that. But what
yeah,
chemically and what physically is going on in our bodies to like make our traits react the way they do.
that's right. And I think that that chemical mix, just it's so important. Like, you know, it's so it's underlooked. Like I think, you know, people don't like like that book. I'm definitely gonna read that book because it just sounds like it's something that I need to be reading right now. And it's just I think, yeah, and I've always thought estrogen. I wonder what it does to you. Like I always wonder what it does because I don't, you know, obviously being a male, I've got testosterone galore, and that's. But I now that I do find that I because I can sit there and I can speak to I enjoy conversations with women more because I think my testosterone is dropping. Like I'm getting older, so I don't have that. Like, you know, when I was young, man, I had
A drive.
adrenaline just going all the time. That's why I could play and just run around. And I'm not thinking about shit. Like, I'm just like, I'm just doing stuff. Now I sit and think more. And that's why my conversations, me and my wife have such good conversations now. Like, and we've been together 12 years and I was different when I met her.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I am now, I'm catching up to her.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And like females change as well. I think actually
Yeah,
that's what I've been talking about with some of my friends, is like I'm finding myself like, do females get more testosterone as they go? I don't know, it's weird because like I'm finding myself being more rational and more logical as I grow up. But I'm finding, even like with me and Rob, like I would say we've changed, we've kind of almost been a bit of a flip, like as in like I used to be very emotional and very not logical, and he was very rational and very like, because we met when
yeah,
like I was 19, he was like 21 or 22, so like very like still in like
yeah,
our growing up, but now
yeah,
he's like 30 and now I'm like 27, 28. Like we're in a different stage mentally, so like I'm becoming, he's like you say, becoming more like he can talk about stuff and that kind of thing, and I'm more logical. So like what happens in the brain to make that balance, like what's
yeah.
happening like with testosterone and estrogen that way?
And you know how women used to say, "Oh, you got them trained well." Like, you got them
Yeah.
training them, and it kind of is. We kind of do have to get trained to it, but it's also just, I think it is a chemical balance. I think
Mm.
my testosterone is dropping. I know that for sure. Like, it's harder for me to put on muscle. Like, I've been training and stuff, and I'm just like, damn, it never used to be this hard.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's harder for me to just go for, like, just do physical things that I used to just do, no worries. Um, so I think, yeah, it's, as you get older, the relationships do get better. Like, if you're not already, if you don't hate each other, like,
Yeah.
but,
The damage isn't done already.
yeah, damage isn't done, that you're just personality wise, you just fucking hate each other. But we get along really well. We don't fight much anyway. Like, we've had one fight during lockdown, one, and it's not even a big one. It was over bullshit. It
That
was
was
over
same as
just,
us. We fought over Hoover. I remember like we literally had the biggest fight, and I was like, "What are we even doing?"
something
That
small.
way I won. Yeah.
Right? And like, there was in the other interview I was talking about, there was a point where I was really anxious and I was real upset. So, and I was looking at Chrissy. She just started bringing the washing in, and I'm sitting there on thing just upset, like, not like, And then I was like, I need to go fold the washing. So I started folding the washing with her, and then I started talking to her as I'm folding the washing, and we just had a conversation. And just talking to her made me feel better. Like, I could feel myself go down. Like, just the conversation. And she just started, and she was like, yeah, I feel that you haven't been good for the last couple of days. And it's just straight communication,
Mm-hmm.
and speaking these words. So, like, again, the thoughts that we're having, and that they're not, when you're not processing them properly, it's it's good to get another perspective, because then their thoughts come across, and then it starts giving you different connections. That connection has a actual physical, like creating that connection that she had with me, where she just made me realize, oh, true, I shouldn't worry about that so much. And once I had that thought, my chemical, like, I could feel it just go, there was a physical response to that thought, to that thought connection. So there's
I
something in it.
I think like the way like getting your thoughts out is actually really important as well. So like if you having them inside of your head, even if
Yeah,
it's like you're just talking to yourself, like that's why I've been finding myself doing more. Because I had an interview ages ago with Mark Treadwell, and he was saying about the fact that like whenever we hold things in our head, and like they escalate and they escalate and they escalate. But then once we actually get them out, whether we write them on a piece of paper, write in a diary, whether it's just saying them out, and it's a different way of our brain processing it. Like whenever we're it's internal, it's harder to actually process than whenever we're actually getting it out of our brain. And then
yeah,
even if sometimes if I talk to Rob about stuff, I'm like, whenever I hear it out in the open, I'm like,
mm,
how am I even letting myself think those thoughts? Like
yeah,
I wouldn't let my best friend, if my best friend was telling me like, if someone was saying that to her, I'd be like, what are you like, don't talk to my friend
yeah,
that way. But I'm
yeah.
telling myself that. And it's like you can tell yourself such hurtful things that you would never dream of saying to anyone else, but you can get yourself in that cycle of telling negative words.
Well, that's funny, because then it's like, does your ears process the words better? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that you physically let out sound. Now, like, you've said the exact same thing that's in your head, but now your ears have processed it, and it's gone to there. Like, it's gone there rather than stay back there. So
Yeah.
that's something that's really to think about. Like, because, yeah,
Mm.
if you write it down, now your eyes are processing it rather than just what's in your head. Like, now your eyes are processing it. What is that processing? That physical. that kind of physical.
Well, you're
Just
critically thinking probably more than, because whenever you're critically thinking about something that's external rather than a critical
yeah,
thinking about it's something internally, isn't it? Like you're
yeah,
internally you're trying to critical think all of it, but then once
yeah,
you get it outside of inside, it's like, oh,
yeah,
now I can see what I'm actually saying inside of my head.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great thought.
it was
Whenever we were having these conversations
it
in lunch, like, most of them looked at us being like, "What are they talking about?" Like we're like metacognition on steroids.
uh, but this stuff just it interests me. Like that's why I love coaching and
Yeah.
like,
I hope you enjoyed that session just as much as I enjoyed recording it. Lots and lots of great top tip takeaways, but I think one of my biggest takeaways was the idea of mental gymnastics. And I think that fits into the pillar of growth and accountability. I would say that's definitely a big focus that I've been taking away from this book. And the idea of it's not all positive, it's not all negative, but we are responsible for what happens in there. And the thoughts that we have create the reality that we are experiencing. And yeah, it was just so good to hear that he has taken the positives, and the approach that he's now having in this current climate is different from his very first experience whenever he tried in entrepreneurship. So yeah, it's all about growth and all about understanding yourself towards what you can do next. So yeah, what were your top takeaways? What pillars did you find it related to the most for you? And you can get in contact at Naomi_Toland on Twitter, or at naomi.m.t on Instagram. And make sure to comment below with any top tip takeaways that you have, because it's been so good to have those connections with people who have been commenting or engaging with some other of the content. So yeah, I'm excited to hear from you, and I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you and your bubble are doing well. I'll see you next time. Remember, your choices have an impact. So what impact are you going to have?